You open your eyes in the morning, and before your feet even touch the floor, you have already checked your notifications. There is a message from work sitting there waiting, two group chats with unread messages, one news update about something happening somewhere, and five random videos you never asked to see but somehow appeared anyway. Before you have even taken your first real breath of the day, someone else's thoughts have already entered your mind. And that is just the first 30 seconds after waking up. We used to wake up with our own thoughts. We used to have a few quiet moments before the world rushed in. Now we wake up mid-scroll, already chasing updates, already seeking stimulation, already hunting for something new. We check social media while still in the bathroom. We listen to podcasts during breakfast. We watch videos while getting dressed. We have mastered the art of never being alone, not even with ourselves. We do not just fear silence anymore. We have completely forgotten what it feels like. Here is the strange part. It does not feel like a problem. In fact, it feels productive. It feels like you are learning something, staying informed about important things, catching up with what matters. But somewhere deep down, something feels wrong. You are always plugged into everything, and yet you feel constantly drained. That is because the real cost of constant input is anxiety. And the cure might just be the very thing you have been desperately avoiding: boredom. But how can boredom become a solution? How can something we were taught to escape become a shield against anxiety? Let me explain. First, we need to clear something up. Boredom is not bad. Boredom is ancient. It has been part of human experience since the beginning. In fact, boredom is how your brain communicates something important to you. It is saying we have space now, so let us explore. But instead of exploring that space, we escape from it. Because somewhere along the way, we learned to fear emptiness. Remember what it was like being a child, lying on the floor with nothing to do, staring at the ceiling, watching dust particles float through beams of sunlight. That was not wasted time. That was your brain breathing. That was the space where imagination was born, where you invented stories out of nothing, asked strange questions nobody else thought of, built entire worlds out of silence and empty hours. Today, that kind of boredom has been replaced by content, by noise, by endless notifications demanding your attention. Here is something almost nobody tells you. You cannot feel curious and anxious at the same time. These two states cannot coexist in your mind. Curiosity requires stillness to emerge. Anxiety thrives on noise and chaos. Boredom is how your brain clears the fog. It is not the absence of stimulation. It is an invitation to pay attention to what really matters. When you feel anxious, your brain is overwhelmed with unresolved input. Too many tabs open. Too many thoughts unprocessed. Too many emotions unfelt. But when you allow yourself to be bored, your mind finally gets a chance to sort through everything. It is the emotional equivalent of cleaning a messy room. Not enjoyable at first, maybe even uncomfortable. But afterward, you can finally breathe. But why does our brain resist boredom so strongly? Here is a truth that nobody really wants to hear. Boredom feels difficult because we have become addicted, not in a dramatic, headline-grabbing way, but in a subtle, socially accepted way that we barely notice. We are addicted to input, to information, to stimulation. The algorithm is not just on your phone anymore. It has installed itself in your brain. Each time you feel a flicker of stillness, your mind immediately panics. Open something. Click something. Do not just sit here doing nothing. Why does this happen? Because when you sit still, your brain finally starts hearing its own thoughts. And some of those thoughts are uncomfortable. The task list you have been avoiding for weeks. The conversation that did not go well and still bothers you. The feeling of not being good enough that you keep pushing down. Stillness brings all of that to the surface. So you scroll again, you just check one more thing. You distract yourself before the discomfort can fully arrive. This is not your fault. You were trained to behave this way. The platforms are built to reward restlessness, to keep you jumping from one thing to the next, tapping, reacting, never settling. But here is what they never teach you. Your anxiety is not coming from what you have not accomplished. It is coming from the mental space you have never allowed yourself to have. So, how do you retrain your mind to sit with boredom again? Doing nothing is not as easy as it sounds. It is actually a skill. And like any skill, it starts small. You do not go from overstimulated to peaceful monk overnight. That is not how it works. You start with 2 minutes. I am serious. Just 2 minutes. Sit down somewhere. No phone nearby. No music playing. No distractions of any kind. Set a timer for 2 minutes. And just sit there. You will feel resistance immediately. You will want to reach for something. You will check how much time is left. You will feel uncomfortable in your own stillness. But something strange will also start happening. You will begin to notice things. You will notice your breathing, the rise and fall of your chest. You will notice your shoulders, the tension you did not know you were carrying. And eventually, if you keep practicing this simple exercise, you will notice something deeper, a thought you have been avoiding, an idea that never had space to form, a problem that suddenly solves itself. This is what happens when your mind gets space. It starts working with you instead of against you. Now imagine what happens when you protect this space every single day. Not hours of meditation, just a few minutes of intentional stillness. You go from being reactive to being reflective. You stop drowning in noise and start hearing your own voice again. There is one habit that almost every creative thinker in history shared. They walked, alone, in complete silence, no headphones filling their ears, no input of any kind, just movement and space. Einstein walked for hours while working through problems. Steve Jobs took long walks before every major decision. Leonardo da Vinci would wander and observe the shapes of trees and the flow of water. They were not wasting time. They were creating mental space. When you walk without input, your brain enters what scientists call the default mode network. This is the system responsible for reflection, for big picture thinking, for emotional regulation. In other words, it is how you unstick your mind. You are not designed to think your way out of anxiety while staring at a screen. You have to move. You have to let yourself be bored. You have to let your thoughts catch up with your life. So next time you feel anxious, do not scroll. Walk instead, in silence. Let your mind breathe. There is something important I need to say here. Stillness will not magically erase your anxiety. In fact, at first, it might make everything feel louder. That is because you have been silencing your mind with noise for so long that when you finally sit still, the volume feels unbearable. But that is not the problem. That is the healing beginning. You cannot outrun a thought. You cannot outscroll an emotion. But when you sit long enough without flinching, that thought starts to lose its power over you. You begin to realize something important. I can feel this and still be okay. I can be anxious and still move forward. Boredom becomes the gateway to presence. Presence becomes the gateway to peace. And over time, peace becomes your new normal. Not because life gets easier, but because your mind gets stronger. Let me get practical with you. If you want stillness in your life, you have to design for it intentionally. You cannot wait until everything is done, because everything will never be done. There will always be one more task, one more notification, one more thing demanding your attention. Here is how you start. First, create morning minutes. Before you open your phone, open your thoughts. Sit for 3 minutes doing nothing. Look out the window. Feel your breath moving in and out. Let your mind wake up naturally before the world rushes in. Second, take silent walks. One walk each day with no podcast, no music, no multitasking, just walking and letting your mind wander. That is when insight sneaks in unexpectedly. Third practice, bedtime boredom. Replace your phone with stillness for 5 minutes before sleep. Let your mind settle instead of scroll. Let your thoughts slow down naturally. These are not extra activities you add when you have time. They are the foundation of a calm mind. You do not have to become a monk living in the mountains. You just have to remember that you are human. And humans need silence like lungs need oxygen. You might think all of this sounds slow. Like doing less is somehow weak, like boredom is just another word for laziness. But here is the truth. It is not laziness, it is leadership. Leading yourself away from chaos and toward clarity. In a world addicted to speed, silence is power. In a culture obsessed with constant doing, stillness is wisdom. In a timeline flooded with noise, boredom is your shield. So the next time you feel anxious, do not grab your phone. Do not try to fix the feeling immediately. Just breathe. Just stop. Because now you understand. You are anxious because you never allow yourself to be bored. And the antidote is not more hustle. It is more quiet, more space, more stillness. The kind of stillness that brings you home to yourself.